OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
All right, good morning. You're welcome along. It's OTB AM on this Thursday morning. Nathan with you until 9:30. Tommy Rooney alongside me this morning. Good morning, Tommy.
Well, Nathan, how are things?
He has taken the big step up from producing the show to being the, well, I won't say the main man, you know, the second main man. Playing the support act, Tommy, but listen, we're expecting big things.
I'm well fit to play that support act, Nathan. I hope so. I've got a lot of caffeine in my system. It's a much different prospect being up this early in the morning and being on camera rather than being off camera in your hoodie and your pajamas with a hot water bottle for the whole show.
We are now, sadly, I think, nearly 9 months into this pandemic, and we have seen throughout people with all sorts of interesting backgrounds when they come on this show. Some people, you know, put up a few books to make themselves look very fancy. You're going for the more minimalist look this morning, Tommy, with just a plain wall and one match annual. What's the thinking?
I actually do have a couple of books here, but you can't see them. I've got Paul McGrath autobiography.
Okay, can't see it.
Is it in camera?
Yeah,
no.
there, yeah.
You know, I've got the Roy Keane autobiography. I've got my Gay Talese collection of sports stories. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's fantastic. There's Michael Moynihan's GE Economics there. Not that we're going to get into a Dublin finance chat here, but yeah, there's also the 2004 match annual.
Oh yeah, Beckham with the beautiful hair, his Real Madrid unveiling.
Yeah,
was that your
Beckham,
peak love of football, 2004?
Oh, it was close. I'm 11 years of age in 2004, so yeah, it was close. I actually had a flick through the annual last night, Nathan, and I'll be honest, there's a lot of pages missing. So I have a feeling that I was hanging these pages up on my wall as posters, but I haven't a clue who these players could have been, because if you just go a little further into the book, you've obviously got Beckham. Now, I wouldn't have put Beckham up with his English jersey, given the kind of gossip that I was at 10 years of age. You've got Jermaine Genius describing his perfect day. I keep going to the wrong side.
What is Jermaine Genius' perfect day? I can only imagine how exciting it is. You
know, you've got Jermaine Genius's perfect breakfast, which is a nice fry-up, not particularly healthy. You've got his perfect morning, where he'd love to wake up in Miami. You've got his perfect holiday, which would be Los Angeles. There's a bit of a theme here. His perfect signing. I was well happy when I heard rumours that Rivaldo might sign for Newcastle earlier last season, because I think he's a fantastic player. But if I had to choose my ideal signing, I'd say Ronaldo. This is 04 now, so this is the real Ronaldo. I'd love to hear that Ronaldo was coming to Newcastle so I could play alongside him. I'm not going to read you Jermaine Genius' perfect date, which is with Christina Milian.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know why I didn't have Rue van Nistelrooy up. That gorgeous Rue van Nistelrooy jersey from that Holland team back then. I also didn't have Zidane up, so I couldn't tell you why on earth or who I was hanging.
Was there a Roy Keane photo in there? You probably had that up.
I would have had Roy on my wall. There's a Luis Figo photo here I haven't dug out as well. I'm just looking for... Oh, yeah. Freddie Adu. Meet the superstar of tomorrow. Do you remember Freddie Adu?
I do, of course, remember Freddie Adu.
Yeah. So,
Grant Wall, actually, the American journalist, has a new podcast series out where he sort of does a deep dive into the mystery around Freddie Adu and how he went from being the greatest young talent the world had ever seen to somebody who just simply didn't make it. So that's well worth checking out. Tommy, you are the man behind the scenes. You make it all happen, and you're the man who's making the news this morning, because you are the new Jim Gavin to Bernard Brogan. You know how to get the very best. You know how to motivate this guy. And he has done a brilliant interview with Jack McCaffrey that is across all the back pages this morning. We do want to get into this. Instead of talking about what's in the back pages, we'll bring you the actual clip of what Jack McCaffrey had to say. So this is from the latest episode of the Bernard Brogan podcast. It's got a massive reaction on OTB. Jack McCaffrey, the special guest, and explaining to Bernard exactly why he stepped away from the Dublin football squad earlier this year.
Something just wasn't right, and it probably wasn't right since halfway through the summer last year, when I just felt the fun had gone out of the whole thing, really, and I wasn't looking forward to going to training. Like, you know, I'd spoken in interviews before about the love I had for the group and stuff, and that was always true, but it just kind of suddenly wasn't really anymore, just because of changes in my life as opposed to anywhere else. And then I think what broke me was the drawn final. Like, you build up everything for this game, and it went quite well on a personal level, and obviously didn't win, we didn't lose, thank God. But I remember shaking David Moore, and I was walking off the pitch, and I was walking up to the ref. I thought there was extra time, and David Moore just kind of stuck his hand out to shake my hand, and I was like, we don't have to do this again, do we?
Yeah, I totally agree. So now I was in the stands this time, but the energy it takes personally for an individual to get to hype up for that game and to give it everything, and then to think about I have to go back into training, I have to go back work, all of the things I have to kick out 2 weeks is a really difficult to take, isn't it?
Yeah, and like I had incredible colleagues in Temple Street who like really covered my backside on numerous occasions for me to get out to training and stuff. And then I was at a clinic on a Thursday afternoon that following week, and if I had just said to anyone, I've got training, there would have been no I was there more to learn really than anything at that point. This is a pretty specialised clinic, and I was surplus to requirements. If I'd have said I've training now at 7, I would have been told off you go. But I just kept my mouth shut, and I stayed there till 8 o'clock, I think, and I missed training. And I was like, I can't go there. I can't. I just turned up and told Jim I got late at a clinic and didn't train, and we rolled into the next week, and thankfully everything went well. But I was so drained by that, and then I never really got it back.
Yeah, that is Jack McCaffrey on episode 4 of the Bernard Brogan podcast, available right now in the OTB GAA stream and brought to you with thanks to SuperValue, #support where you're from. Tommy, that's just one snippet of an hour of just brilliance from Jack McCaffrey and an incredible insight into the thought process. I wouldn't say of every player, but to have got to the very, very top, and you just sense you'd want more. I think from the outside, you would think every player, as much as you want to win on the first day, the thought of going through another All-Ireland final and the excitement and getting to do it all again in front of 80,000 people, that would be such a motivational factor that somehow that love for Jack McCaffrey was just gone.
Yeah, 100%, Nathan. Like, as you mentioned, it's a 2-minute clip from an hour-long piece that Jack did with Bernard. And, you know, we've had Jack in the studio before, and he's been great, and he's one of the most interesting characters in the GA. But I'm not sure he would have opened up as he did to Bernard, a former teammate, as he would have to anyone else, really. Like, it was a really, really good hour. That clip that you're talking about got a massive reaction. Obviously, it was picked up across the papers. We saw a lot of people, I saw a lot of people quote tweeting it last night and maybe saying, Jesus, I don't feel so bad now for stopping playing with the club because McCaffrey felt it. But I do feel that what McCaffrey felt and that moment that he pinpointed is an individual feeling. I'm not saying that there isn't a problem, that players aren't falling out of love with the game, but I just know that Jack McCaffrey, just from being on that call with him or seeing the way he speaks to the media, he can't help himself. He's so thoroughly honest. He's one of the most engaging and endearing characters you can have, that you can have in a show. And when he's talking about that moment and he's describing walking over to the ref to say, Jesus, is there extra time here? I think he could probably write a book about why he felt that. I'm not sure it was because, I don't know if it was because he felt completely drained by playing in front of 80,000 people. I'm not sure if it's because he felt, I don't want to guess what he felt. Like maybe Jack's job is as demanding as other jobs, and maybe life with the Dubs isn't exactly what everyone signed up for. Do you know what I mean? There's 30 individuals in that team.
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? That I think a lot of people, and some of the comments I was seeing, were reading that this proves once again that inter-county football has just got out of control, that if somebody like Jack McCaffrey can't find the love and the time for it, that there's a serious issue. Where actually, from listening to him, it sounds as though actually this was just him, that the vast majority of players are still more than happy to make that commitment because they can enjoy the highs. You get the sense from listening to Jack McCaffrey that actually that joy that you're meant to feel on All-Ireland final day, when that's not there, well, actually, maybe the best thing is to step away. When the guilt, I'm sure, that goes with, particularly in the profession he's in, when you're in Temple Street and you're probably having to nip out a little bit early to get to training, to get to a match, that weighing on your shoulders, if you're not getting the buzz on the other end, well, what's the point of it?
100%. And like he admitted himself, like he just had the game of his life. He scored 1-3, that goal. They just saved the drive for 5. It should have been sheer relief. And it probably takes a very strong character to be able to accept that feeling and step back. Now, I feel slightly uncomfortable to be presuming exactly what Jack McCaffrey felt. It's well worth listening back to the whole thing and listening to him talking about that section. Like, it's probably 35, 40 minutes before we get into Dublin football. There's so much more about Jack McCaffrey than just stepping back from the Dubs in 2020. Like, he's obsessed with the fantasy world. And the likes of Lord of the Rings, that's a very, very cheap way of saying it. But, like, you know, they have trigger words, the Dubs. And there's a segment in this podcast where Bernard says that in 2019, when he had come back from the cruise ship and he wasn't starting, he wanted to find a way that he could impact on the squad and help, even if it was a small thing, a percentage. So we found out what Jack McCaffrey's trigger call was. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it was. Most lads could be, it could be something written on their wrists, or it could be seize the day. Jack's was, I don't even know the Elvish, but it was like, I can't even say it. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, he's got it tattooed on himself. He really believes in it, and it means roll the dice. So, like, you're getting these little insights into these Dublin players. Like is McCaffrey saying to himself, when Stephen Cluxton's putting down that ball and Brian Howard's moving out to the wing, is McCaffrey going, Deviante, blah, 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 and Elvish, roll the dice, and he's gone. And he's gone up the wing and he's burying it into the back of the net. Look, it's well worth listening to. I agree with you. I'm not sure that it's something that we can portray onto every other footballer in the country and say, well, if McCaffrey's feeling it, maybe the game is broken. I think there could be other reasons why the game is broken. I wouldn't like to take one individual's well-articulated feelings as a symptom of everyone else's.
All right, so that episode 4 of Bernard Brogan, there's also Shane Lowry, Tommy Bowe, Ty Connell, and a very special final episode in the series coming up. Are we allowed to tell people, or is it a surprise for later in the week?
Oh, I'm not going to jinx it by telling you. It's going to be with the Brogan family, so it's Maria. It's
I'm not going to jinx you by telling you, but here it is.
No, it's going to happen. It has to happen. So it's with Maria, with Paul, with Alan, with Bernard. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Yeah, no, they've been great so far. Really, really interesting conversations. And, the likes of Tig and Shane and Tommy got into really good stuff with Bernard as well.
All right, lots more to come from Tommy across the morning. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence for the day ahead. We got a busy show. We're going to be talking Liverpool in just a couple of minutes' time with Caoimhe O'Neill. A straightforward night for them, a 1-1 draw, but they had already done the job to ensure they were through to the knockout stage of the Champions League. The draw for that coming up on Monday. 8 o'clock, Tommy Walsh is going to be with us, looking ahead to the All-Ireland hurling final. We'll have John Duggan in studio. Keith Wood will be talking to us ahead of the return of the Heineken Champions Cup, but that's really been overshadowed by the tales of concussion this week and Steve Thompson's interview and the class action case that's been taken. So we'll talk to Keith about that a little bit later. And then just after 9 o'clock, the former Tipperary hurler John O'Brien will join us. He has moved into the world of whiskey making. No samples have been sent this way just yet, so we'll be obviously taking him up on that. And then John Connell has written a book about running, which I'm sure plenty of people are going to be thinking about getting back into once we get through this Christmas period. Phil Egan is alongside me in studio. How are you keeping, Phil?
How are you doing? You all right?
What is going on?
Well, we're going to start with sad news. 2020 really is the year that just keeps on giving, unfortunately, because Italy World Cup legend Paolo Rossi has died at the age of 64. Former Juventus and AC Milan striker won the Golden Boot and Golden Ball at the 1982 tournament. Famously scored in the final against West Germany, the 3-1 win, and also scored a hat-trick against Brazil earlier in the tournament. We don't know the cause of death. This news just broke overnight. Liverpool, Manchester City and Chelsea will all be seeded in next Monday's draw for the last 16 of the Champions League. Liverpool finished off their Group D campaign with a 1-1 draw away to Danish champions Midtjylland. Caoimhe Kelleher conceded a second-half penalty in his third consecutive start for Jurgen Klopp's side. Mo Salah scored after just 55 seconds. He's now Liverpool's all-time leading scorer in the Champions League with 22 goals. Billy Cometio, who's just turned 18, became Liverpool's youngest ever player to appear in the competition. Atalanta took second place in the group. They won 1-0 away to Ajax. Sergio Aguero scored on his return to the Manchester City team. They won 3-0 at home to Marseille. City, like Liverpool, were already guaranteed top spot. Real Madrid went from potential elimination to securing top spot in Group B. They won 2-0 at home to Borussia Mönchengladbach. Gladbach actually went through to the last 16 as well. Inter Milan finished bottom of that group. They drew 0-0 with Shakhtar Donetsk. PSG beat Istanbul Başakşehir 5-1 in that game that had to resume
It resumed in the 14th minute, obviously abandoned on Tuesday due to that alleged racial slur by an official. Dundalk's Europa League Group B campaign comes to a close tonight. They're back at the Aviva Stadium where they lifted the FAI Cup on Sunday. They play Arsenal in their final game. Remember, Arsenal have won all their games so far in that group. Dundalk have lost all their games. That game kicks off at 5-6. At the same time, Rangers can secure top spot in Group D if they win away to Lech Poznan. Leicester and Tottenham also need wins to guarantee top spot in their respective groups. They're obviously both through to the last 32. Spurs are at home to Antwerp. Leicester take on AEK Athens at the King Power Stadium. Celtic's disappointing campaign comes to a close at home to Lille. Dublin GAA Secretary John Costello says he'll back the proposed split season at Congress.
I thought you were about to say he backs the proposed split of Dublin.
Definitely not. No.
You're not for the split, Phil, no?
No.
Are you a Southsider, Phil?
I am, yeah.
You know,
Okay.
Wicklow man, Phil.
What? No, I'm back. I'm back in the capital now, yeah.
Is there too much of a split on the South Side for the South Side to unite behind one team?
No, I in fairness, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but if there was an exhibition game, North versus South Dublin would be one hell of a game. I've often thought about who'd win.
See, Phil, we'll have to split you in 4 if we ever do it.
Yeah, see, then...
That's next week's conversation after the win.
But do you want... Like, if you're from South Dublin, West Dublin, East Dublin, North Dublin, do you want to go along and watch those? Like, does it not take away the integrity of the championship?
I'll be honest with you, Phil. John was saying that yesterday. He's saying he wouldn't support a South Dublin team that had Connell Callahan leading it. He's a Dub. He wants to support Dublin.
Yeah.
If Meath was split in 4, I'd be all behind North Meath. We're the forgotten part of Meath, North Meath. We're north of the wall. We only had one player this year, Jordan Morris. Well, probably had a few more, but like it's a forgotten pocket of the county. I'd be all for supporting North Meath. I'd support where I'm from, 100%.
North Dublin would walk the All-Ireland right now, wouldn't they?
You'd imagine so, but you mentioned...
They've all the Ballymun lads.
You mentioned Connell Callahan.
Fenton and Howard.
Yeah.
McCaffrey, can you get him back? Would McCaffrey
Kieran Kilkenny.
North Dublin?
Yeah, you've obviously got Cluxton.
Aside from, who have you got? Robbie McDade, Connell Callahan.
Like, Paul Mannion's not getting into the team at the moment.
Mick Fitzsimmons. That's it.
Big Fitz, yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
right
but
now the north side.
Yeah, but the thing with here's the problem with Dublin is there's so many good footballers, say, for example, on the south side of Dublin, who'll never play for Dublin because that is the competition. I'm not saying, I mentioned the word integrity, right? Look, something definitely has to be done. As I said, it's a conversation because I sat down on Saturday and I had the Dublin Cavan game on the TV, the West Ham and Manchester United game on my laptop, and within 10 minutes I was watching the Premier League game because we knew what was going to happen in the other game. Whereas United were under the cosh and you're thinking, yeah, this game has a little bit more bite to it.
I'm just looking at this Dublin squad here. And the north side is absolutely dominating. And as someone who lives on the south side, I'm a little bit concerned now that when the split comes for Dublin, once again, I'm going to be on the wrong side of the tracks. So we know that Dublin has got this massive investment. Has a deep dive been done? Has an investigation been done into where that money within Dublin has gone? And has too much of it gone to the north side clubs?
Nah.
Well, it's probably a good question, Nathan, but when you think about it, you've got Crokes on the south side, you've got Ballyboden on the south side, you've got Coola on the south side.
The underprivileged, as it turns out, Tommy.
Well, there was always this thing, obviously, like Crokes would be my club. There was always this feeling, even in the 90s, that Crokes lads never got a look in for the Dublin team. There was politics, that it was mainly north side players that got picked. But if you look at that squad now, there's a reason that there's more Northsiders in the team because
money.
They're incredible footballers. Like, so, but anyway, John Costello was talking about the split season.
Right.
Obviously, he's done his annual report. He says inter-county season should be completed before club season. He also says authorities shouldn't go to a knockout championship on a permanent basis, obviously relating to what's happened this season. But this season is a one-off in terms of COVID. And just the last bit of news from me, obviously the DP World Tour Championship in Dubai is taking place. Usually you'd have Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry in the field, but Graham McDowell is the only Irish player He's 1 over after 2 holes. Malaysia's Gavin Green is the early leader there on 4 under par.
All right, great stuff. Thanks as always for that. Phil Egan with us across the morning. Let's turn our attention back to the Champions League then. It wasn't the most dramatic of final nights of the group stage. Certainly not for Liverpool. A 1-1 draw away against Midtjylland in Denmark, but Liverpool already assured of top spot in the group. Caoimhe O'Neill, Liverpool reporter for The Athletic, is with us. Morning, Caoimhe. No, she is not with us just yet, I'm told.
Just as we're waiting on Caoimhe, Nathan, not to disagree with John Costello again, but he brought up the split season, and he said that county needs to come before club. Like, I'm not fully sure that it does, and I'm not fully sure if, like, I don't really know why he's saying that. Like, if you could think about it, like, we learned a lot this year with the club season being given a bit of a chance out front. Obviously, we know the majority of our players are club players. I think the club season should be ran off from January to June, and then just say let inter-county take over from there. Potentially even bring it in down the line that maybe your league season in a club is starting, a little earlier in the year, and your championships are coming in around April and May and June.
But if your club championship is going all the way to June, and presumably then you need some sort of a break before the inter-county season starts, are you not starting your inter-county season till the end of July?
But when did it start this year? Look at how good it's been in all sorts of conditions.
I wonder what effect, if actually crowds had been allowed in this year, it would have on the regular attendance when you wake up on a Sunday morning and it's 1 degree, lashing rain. Are you really going to go out and watch a Leinster quarter-final?
Yeah, but we know the Leinster won't be that far. This year has been an absolute freak in the calendar, and we know that. But there could be a way of splitting it and putting the club first. I just think it can be done. Can you imagine if we had our summers free, and you didn't have to annoy your teammates that are slightly younger to not go on their J1 to America this year? They could just go off and do it in peace, or they could go travelling, or they could go play soccer in the second half of the year. It's just I would just be very worried that we're going to slip straight back into a 14-month calendar where it's non-stop training. If you actually end up winning or doing well, you're in a provincial, a provincial overlap, or the club season is starting before the next one has ended the following year. I don't know whether a decision's been made yet. I know there hasn't. There's been a first club training.
Are club players a bit soft or something? Like, why do you need to play in the middle of summer? Why can't you be like club soccer players who play all through the winter?
I'm not saying club players need to play in the middle of summer. I'm just saying I don't want it to slip back into another 14-month season when you don't know when it's going to end or when it's going to start.
That's almost a different talking point to the time of year, is the fact that the fixture list, it seems, within club GAA is a movable feast. So rather than generally, and I'm sure people who play junior football and junior soccer be texting in saying it's not always the case, but you generally get fixture list at the start of the year. You have your breaks for cup competitions. You sort of can plan out your year, your holidays, all of that. It doesn't matter when the club championship is fixed for. If it is pre or post championship, if there's still this situation where games can be cancelled, games can be pulled, county managers have influence, none of it's really going to make a huge amount of difference.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. Yeah, and there needs to be probably a centralised system, but a lot of clubs are trying to start and they haven't a clue whether they're going to be playing football in February this year or January this year. So I suppose we'll learn soon enough, but I'd just be worried that they're not going to learn the lessons from this year. There was a massive opportunity to fix a couple of things with the calendar, and it'd be such a shame if we just rolled right back into the same old years that we've had.
All right, it is the run-up to Christmas, Tommy, and to help you celebrate an unusual festive season and to stay close to the team of us, Vodafone want to fill your Christmas stocking. Every morning this week, we have a selection of great gifts to give away. This morning, you can win one signed copy of Rob Kearney's book, No Hiding, one Lions jersey, and an Irish rugby jersey. To get your name in the hat, just tell us who is today's mystery voice.
I've apologised to the people that matter. I'm not going to sit here and apologise to the whole world.
That's fine.
I've apologised to the people that matter. I'm not going to sit here and apologise to the whole world.
To enter, just send your guess to WhatsApp 087 9180 180. We will reveal the answer and the winner just before the end of the show at 9:30. And if you don't win today, tune in again tomorrow for more chances to win. It's all with thanks to Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. Now, let's go to Caoimhe O'Neill, Liverpool writer with The Athletic. Morning, Caoimhe.
Morning.
So it was pretty straightforward for Liverpool last night, a chance for Jurgen Klopp to rest and rotate. I presume there's science behind it when he is resting and rotating, because In a situation last night, Liverpool fans look at that team and they go, why is Mo Salah playing?
Yeah, I think, you know what, sometimes you look at it, don't you, and wonder why Mo Salah's on a pitch in the middle of Jutland. But I think, you know, it comes from Mo Salah, and that first minute he proved why he wanted to be there, and that's to score goals. And I don't think that can necessarily be a bad thing. You know, he didn't come away from it injured, which would have been, I think, more of a worry, wouldn't it? He got his goal in the first, I think it was 50-odd seconds. And then, you know, it was quite a difficult game with obviously the much changed lineup for Liverpool, and a great night for some young lads. Obviously, Kelleher, brilliant in goal again. Leighton Clarkson gets his chance in the midfield. Reece Williams again showed how confident he is at the back. And obviously another big night for Trent Alexander-Arnold, how many he's had now. But he obviously captained Liverpool, which is, you know, a massive achievement for such a young lad.
He's back. It looks as though he's getting back to full fitness. Given the armband last night, the type of personality that Alexander-Arnold is, when Jordan Henderson eventually finishes up, is Alexander-Arnold the obvious choice to take over as captain?
I mean, it's got a bit of a sort of Steven Gerrard vibe to it, hasn't it, almost? You kind of, you know, you saw him with the armband last night and you did feel maybe, you know, can he be the Steven Gerrard type, where obviously Houllier gave Gerrard the captain's armband over Hippier, which was, you know, he was very young when that happened. You kind of do feel maybe, obviously, Alexander-Arnold, for what he's achieved at the club, he's obviously the world's best right back. He's proved that for the past couple of seasons. You know, he's a Champions League winner, a Premier League winner, the youngest player to appear in back-to-back Champions League finals. You know, there's so many records he already holds, but to hold that captain's armband and wear it round his arm for every game would be just a massive honour to himself, his family. You know, it's something he's obviously dreamed of. He's mentioned in interviews in the past, you know, that's what he's working towards. And I think, obviously, you know, he's achieved so much. So, you know, what can his goals be? They've obviously got to be massive still, but I think captain in Liverpool would be the next thing for him. Obviously, Jordan Henderson's doing a fantastic job there. Obviously, you've got James Milner as well as vice captain. But obviously, these players are getting older. So, you know, whether Klopp makes a decision in the future, the players actually voted, I think it was a couple of seasons ago, on who to be the sort of third and fourth choice captains, and they picked Gini Wijnaldum and Virgil van Dijk, the two Dutch lads. So, you know, that'll be interesting. So Alexander-Arnold technically, you know, is maybe fifth in choice, you would think. But obviously last night none of those players were playing, and Alexander-Arnold captained the team. So you would think, you know, it's sort of a natural next step, sort of succession for Alexander-Arnold one day, and, you know, it'll be great to see.
He has just turned 22, so it is very early, but you look at the progression of Jordan Henderson as Liverpool captain to the footage that I'm sure people have seen recently, when, because the crowds aren't in, you can hear every word he says and his motivation on the pitch. Alexander-Arnold as a personality at the moment, is he a quiet, shy guy, or do you see already that sort of leadership there, that actually, when you're watching the games without the fans being in, he's somebody actually you'd notice trying to drive his teammates forward?
I mean, them passes drive them forward anyway, don't they? I mean, is there a better pass across it from that range in Wales football right now? I'm not too sure. You know, he returned from fitness to fitness against Wolves, and as soon as he come on, he just, you know, pinged the pass right on the money, didn't he? Which obviously was an own goal in the end, but Salah and Mane were queuing up to get on the end of it. It was pinpoint perfect. And I think, you know, on the pitch, he leads by example, which is the best way I think a leader can lead, isn't it? Just by performance and, you know, energy. And Liverpool have got that. I mean, obviously on the other side of the pitch, and Andy Robertson, who's obviously the captain of Scotland. I just think it's all over the pitch, and obviously Alexander-Arnold, for such a young lad, because, you know, we speak about him as though he's this sort of 25, 26-year-old player. He's just turned 22. You know, he's a young lad still. And you know, the confidence he has is immeasurable, you know, and the skill as well.
Yeah, on the skill, because I know, Tommy, you want to come in and Caoimhe Kelleher, but just on, he's obviously, as you say, arguably the best right back in the world. When he first emerged, there was a sense that eventually he might develop into a central midfielder, that was the long-term plan. Is that still a possibility for Alexander-Arnold, or has he just proven to be so good and so influential, actually, from that position at right back? They don't need him in midfield anymore. He can do more damage, arguably, from where he is on the pitch right now.
Yeah, I think that question about Alexander-Arnold has been a sort of constant one throughout his career. Just because of his passing range and his ability on the ball, everyone's always thought the natural sort of next step, along with the captain's armband, would be to go into the midfield. But I don't necessarily think, at one time I would have thought maybe, that's a great idea to put him into the midfield. But he's the best right back in the world. So why would you move someone out of that position and put them in another position? I'm sure, Liverpool have had a lot of injuries of late, as we know. I'm sure if something happened, it'd be great to sort of see him in a one-off game in the midfield and see how he could cut it. I'm sure he'd be absolutely fine. But when you've got someone of that ability on the right-hand side of the pitch, and, Liverpool's style of play is to, bring those full-backs forward, and that's how they get so much joy. Why would you want to miss out on that to put Alexander-Arnold in another position? I'm not saying, as his career goes on, he won't develop into a midfielder, but it just feels like, when you've got something good, you just hold on to it.
Caoimhe and Kelleher's third starting role last night. How impressed have you been by him? Like, as Irish fans, we've a lot of young lads that are on the brink of breaking through at the minute. A lot of potential, but Kelleher is probably, alongside a few others, one of the first that's getting real minutes in the Premier League. So how have you seen him over the last couple of weeks?
I think the most exciting thing about Kelleher is he's been training with the world's best goalkeeper in Alisson Becker for a while now. He's a young player who's been at training with the first team a lot, for a long time. So he's been learning and developing in that way. Everything always coming out the club from him, of his coaches, from John Achterberg and the likes, has always been positive. They've always been, really positive about him, and always said that he's a great goalkeeper, and fans haven't really been able to see that. Obviously, if you watch academy games, you'll be able to see. I've seen quite a bit of him and always been impressed by, I think mainly that he can pass with both feet. He can hit the ball with both feet, which is, a quality you search for in a goalkeeper. And to think he come to goalkeeping so late, I think he was 14. I think we had a piece on the site, which sort of went, back to his childhood in Cork and, his football there, which was a really interesting read just on the background of everything. And then obviously, it's this lad from Cork starting in Liverpool games and with Alisson out. And, there was maybe a worry pre-match before he started in the first game, but he's quickly a keeper who, I think this is the best quality a keeper can have, is that you, as a fan, you don't watch and you're not concerned or worried. And I think that's almost an Alisson trait, isn't it? We get to not almost watch the goalkeeper because he's so good. We don't need to watch him. We just know he's there. And Kelleher has that vibe about him, which I think, is really positive. But, I think he's been outstanding, especially getting the 2 clean sheets early on there against Wolves and Ajax. But obviously, it would have been lovely for him to get it last night. And he made some great saves again, just to sort of show his quality and his capabilities. And he's just, like, as I said there, he's just not a worry. As he's, you put him in and he's brilliant. And this is a player we have to remember who, his last game for Liverpool's under-23s, he shipped 7 goals to Man City, and then he comes in on the biggest stage of all, the Premier League, the Champions League, and performs in this way. I think, he might have even surprised, he probably won't have surprised his goalkeeping coaches. They work with him every day, they know his qualities, but I mean, he has surprised a lot of people. But he's backing up these performances now, and he's now Liverpool's unrivaled number 2, definitely, to Alisson. He's sort of overtaken Adrian, who, you do have more of a concern when he plays because he's less sort of technically gifted. He's a great shot stopper from close range, and I just think, you Irish should be very excited. I think, won't be long before he's maybe getting that first choice over Randolph in for the national team, maybe.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise at all, particularly with Darren Randolph not playing either at the moment for West Ham. When is Alisson due back?
I think he should be back this weekend, I'd assume. I think he posted something himself the other day to say sort of not far away. And, when he first sort of picked up the sort of slight strain, it was sort of touted that he'd be back for the Fulham game at the weekend. So, Liverpool fans will be hoping for that. But then again, it's not a massive worry now. Usually in between, when a player's injured, in between games, like as journalists, more so my colleague James Pearce will have it, but it's people just saying, when's Alisson back? When's Alisson back? Now, I think the highest compliment we can pay to Caoimhe is not a lot of people are asking, because, they know, actually, what, we've got a solid number 2 here and it's not a worry.
All right, Caoimhe O'Neill, great stuff as always. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Cheers, Caoimhe.
We're going to take a quick break, then we're going to be back with papers, and we're going to look ahead to the All-Ireland hurling final with Tommy Walsh.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station. Off the ball.
I scored a goal in some kind of celebrity thing that I managed to get invited to, but Bez from the Happy Mondays was a goal. Oh, Jesus. He didn't put up much resistance, but he had the decency. He said, good goal, Tom. That was one of the highlights of my life. Like, he was watching the match. His head had been in goal. It's like, oh, that was a good goal, Tom.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
Follow the leader, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, the world's best-selling plug-in hybrid, is now available with 0% finance and a free home charge point worth €800. Leading the charge in plug-in hybrid technology, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. Book a test drive at your local dealer today. Mitsubishi, drive your ambition. Terms and conditions apply. See mitsubishimotors.ie. Lending criteria applies. This is a hire purchase agreement provided by Bank of Ireland Finance.
Bet smart this season with stat betting on the Boyle Sports app. For the first time ever, bet on shots, shots on target, tackles, passes, assists and more, all powered by Opta. Why not check out the hottest action on the biggest game of the week right now on the Boyle Sports app. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Need help? Contact gamblingcare.ie. 18 plus.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
You're welcome back to OTB AM. Nathan with you this morning. Do get in touch on any of our social channels, particularly if you have any thoughts on the All-Ireland hurling final. Talking to Tommy Walsh in just a moment. But a quick look at the back pages. One man dominating them all, and it is that Jack McCaffrey interview from his Bernard Brogan podcast. That is on the back of the Irish Independent. I decided to quit Dubs on the trip home from Tyrone. McCaffrey reveals for first time how he fell out of love with the inter-county game. For now, the best quote, and one of the best of the entire interview, is that he's not retiring, because he says, if I wake up tomorrow and I said, and I've got a buzz on, I want to play for Dublin again, that's just not there at the moment though. If he gets his buzz on, Jack McCaffrey will be back. There is an awful lot more to Jack McCaffrey than the quotes in the papers though. Here is another quick taste of what you can find on the OTB Sports app or wherever you get your OTB GAA pods.
So I think there was one of those, everyone huddled up in the last few messages and here we go out again. You can kind of hear the crowd rumbling and yeah, we're going. And I think it was just said, now look around, look at everybody. And I did, and I just kind of naturally was like, Beck, sometimes you kind of get imposter syndrome up at some of those training sessions or at those meetings where you're like, I'm beside Keane, Clucko, Philly Mack, Byrne, and I was looking around and I just started smiling. And then after that game, someone came up to me and told me I looked like an absolute lunatic and that it was very off-putting for them. And then it kind of became a bit of a thing that we joked about. And I definitely did it consciously afterwards. But I do think that standing under Croker, about to run out in front of whatever 1,000 people, like you're not hands around, like you're grabbing each other and in tight, and you're looking at some of the best people to play the game and some of your best friends, and like, geez, if you can't smile then, when can you?
Yeah, that is Jack McCaffrey. Remember, you can get that Bernard Brogan podcast. Just get on to the OTB Sports app, search for GAA podcast, subscribe, and you will get all our GAA content, including all our coverage around the All-Ireland hurling and football finals. And we're going to talk about the hurling final right now because Tommy Walsh is on the line. Good morning, Tommy.
Good morning, Nathan.
Did you ever get imposter syndrome? When you did the training with DJ, did you think, geez, I don't belong here?
Well, I suppose, funny enough, you probably would, like, at times, especially in the early parts of your career, when you're in marking the likes of Charlie Carter, DJ Carey, Brian McAvoy, Shefflin himself. Like, sometimes you do feel maybe you shouldn't be there, but you quickly get over that and try and win the next ball, you know. But
yeah.
I'd say every county player can relate to feeling like Jack did at times, I suppose, Nathan, you know, maybe the buzz is gone and not enjoying it anymore. But I think over the course of your career or over the year, maybe you enjoyed a lot more than those moments. So obviously he was, you know, strong enough probably to walk away towards, I'd say, a lot of people wouldn't be able to, because although there's times that they don't want to be there, they would much rather the highs than those few lows, you know.
It's particularly incredible when he's thinking like that after the Drone game last year, where he has one of the great performances in an All-Ireland final. He scores 1-3. Rather than thinking, God, another chance to go out and show myself in front of 80,000 people, he almost got the sense he'd rather be anywhere else. It strikes that he's a pretty unique individual.
Yeah, but I tell you, I could relate to that with the 2012 All-Ireland, the year we played Galway. So what happens is, with the inter-county, it's all consuming for so long. So you go back in, let's say, January, probably for him, it's probably just all year round, maybe November, December, I'm not sure, even though the Dubs are good enough to take their time off during the winter. I have noticed that. So it was probably from January on. So you're talking about 9 months. Then at the end of September. So I remember playing the All-Ireland against Galway, and now it was different in that we had it won. I'm not sure what the story is in that final. Were they winning by a point? But in our final, we were winning by a point. So when it was a draw, like, it was nearly as bad as losing. And you're like, oh no, we have to go 3 more weeks. I have to train, go back. You know, we thought this was all over, win or lose, but you have to go back training for 3 weeks. And you know, I can understand that. I'd say the Kenny lads, probably, and maybe the Galway lads from 2012, they might be able to relate to that. But I suppose Brian Cody just brought us into a meeting and quickly got us out of that mindset, you know. And it was interesting what he said to us. Like, I've said it on this show a few times. Like, he said to us, right lads, because we were all down in the dumps, and it was in a room in the City West, and he just said to us, right lads, since you were 4 or 5 years of age, you've dreamed in playing in All-Irelands, you know, in front of 80,000 people, for Kilkenny, on the biggest day of all. You're going to get that chance in 3 weeks' time. He was saying you'd wait 3 months, 3 years, 30 years for that one chance that most people don't get. So I suppose we were lucky in that about, 2 hours after the final whistle went, he brought us back from feeling sorry for ourselves into, you know, we're the luckiest lads in the world. So, you know, I'd say lads can relate. A drawn match is a funny match, Nate. And, you know, you are built up for weeks and months for this final moment. And then it's not really over. So you can relate to it, yeah.
Tommy here, what's the crack?
Well, Tommy.
Yeah, the Dubs were behind that day. Remember, they had a man sent off and they kind of rescued the drive for 5. And I know what you're saying there about the deflation of a draw. But I think if from listening to the McCaffrey interview as a whole, I think something went wrong in the summer, or he lost the love of it in the summer. And I think he's pinpointing that game. I'm not sure it was specifically the draw itself, if you know what I mean. I think it was just that realisation when he looks back in it that, Jesus, like, he just didn't want to play. He just wanted to be there, you know. And I'm not sure if that's typical to all drawn finals, or I'm not sure if all the Dubs felt that. Like, I think it was a very natural thing for you to feel in 2012, and for Cody to pull these into a room and say, lads, you've 3 weeks now. But I'm not sure if it was something that McCaffrey could fix, which is obviously why he stepped away.
Yeah, and, you know, I was trying to think about, because, you know, I was watching that kind of story there all day yesterday as it was unfolding. And, you know, obviously a really interesting story because he is an interesting character. So, like, I suppose the other, I'm not sure what the comment on this is now, but it regards his occupation, his job. So if you've noticed the last couple of years, a lot of people, a lot of players, they're nearly fitting their jobs and their careers around their inter-county game. So first and foremost, they're focused on the inter-county game, and kind of everything else for that 10 or 12 years fits in right just a little bit under. Now, you would notice most people that are successful in sport are also successful in the working world. But, you know, he's in such a massive job in the medical industry, and, you know, judging by him there, he seems to absolutely love it. So if he's after having, you know, I don't know, a 12-hour shift, or maybe patients there that, you know, he might have had a tough day with patients and that, you know, seeing things that he mightn't have wanted to see, then you have to go training after it. Suddenly you're into a different game then, Tommy, you know, that when you are out in the field and things are not going well, you know, as regards, you know, you mightn't be in love with it the way you should be. Suddenly then you see, well, listen, I have a massive career outside of this, that, you know, there's a lot of pressure on both sides of it. So, listen, I can understand that.
Did you ever think about stepping back?
Yeah, I'm 37 years of age and I still don't feel like stepping back. You know, I'm absolutely depressed. I've set an ambition for the last while. I want to hurl me 40th year. And, you know, maybe when I get to there, it could be 41 or 42.
Come on, Tommy.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Tommy, this weekend is obviously going to be a most unusual hurling final, and Jack McCaffrey was talking there about the build-up and being in the tunnel before the game and all of that. How different an experience do you think it's going to be, particularly in those moments before throw-in and when nerves are really kicking in for players? The fact that there's no noise around the stadium, there's going to be this slightly surreal atmosphere. You've been in Croke Park already this summer and know what it's like. When you think back to the dozens of times you've been there in Croke Park on big occasions, do the crowd and the occasion, does that feed into the sense of nerve? So do you think it'll be a different build-up for the players?
Oh, absolutely, Nathan, 100%. I was reading an interview with Tom Morrissey during the week, and I think he just commented that it's a lot more relaxed. You'll be a lot more relaxed going out into the field. So I know from playing club hurling this year without the crowds. So the match itself, you are trying your absolute damnedest. It's tough, it's intense, it's everything. But the build-up isn't. It's a lot more relaxed. And he mentioned much the same as the way I was feeling, that in the dressing room you're not too bad. Going out in the field you're not too bad. You're just getting ready for a match as if you're back in your own club. So like if you go back to the times we played in All Irelands, like you could relate to maybe the lockdowns. Like it's a tough day. The morning of a match, like you're just in you're thinking about this. You've built this up for the last few years. Could be 20, 30 years or 12 months. Depends on the situation. And you can't be really laughing and joking. So I always felt when you got to the hotel, so you're excited in the morning, you go up on the bus. Then you get off and you get into the hotel. But hotel means lockdown. That means the joking, the laughing, the crack is gone. You better get to your seat, eat your lunch, kind of look focused. You're very nervous. You're probably not even able to laugh and joke at this stage. You're not able to drink your soup. You're kind of taking a bite here and there out of your sandwich. Then you get the call to go get onto the bus. So now you're starting to see the light, you're starting to come out of the lockdowns, Nathan, and then you get to Croke Park, and this is where it all starts getting enjoyable for me again. The dressing room, you're still there, you still can't wait for 3:30 to come, but I always felt the dressing room, I never liked it. Tried to be busy in the dressing room. We got in there probably about an hour beforehand, maybe a little bit, an hour and 10 minutes. I was praying that there'd be a minor final going on, that wasn't half time in the minor. Get out straight away, stay busy. The last thing I wanted at that stage of an All-Ireland final was to be left with your own thoughts. So I just tried to stay busy doing little things, doing nothing really, and read a little bit of the programme. Back in then, and you got to play in the warm-up area. In the warm-up area then, I spent the majority of my time in there, running, jostling the walls, press-ups, do that, and you could do that. Meant you weren't sitting down thinking about the game. Other lads were different, likes of, we'll say, JJ would be more relaxed, Richie Power would be more relaxed. Different personalities everywhere. But then, as you said, this is where we come to the moment of the crowd. So you're inside in the warm-up area, which is a big green area just underneath the Hogan stand. So once you open that door, you can hear the crowd straight away. So we always felt that it was 3:30 you to be ready for. Brian Cody would have always, mentioned to us, don't let anything, distract you. So if you break your hurl, if you're not feeling great, if, the grass is too long, whatever happens, it doesn't matter. 3:30 is when you need to be ready. So once that door opened, I used to be always first or second out, behind the captain. Not through choice or anything. I just wanted to get out of that dressing room because this is where the enjoyment came back. And once we got out there, I don't know if you come from a farming background up Mayo, Nathan, but we were like cattle coming out of a slatted shed, jumping in ice.
I'm not, but I know what you mean.
That was, So that was the time that we could, get on with it again. And it was great. Like the crowd, the noise. Players will tell you that they don't hear it. You don't really hear anything going on, but you do hear that buzz. Like you can feel the goose pimples on your chest, on your back.
You must feel it, Tommy, at the end of the parade, because I think it's one of the best moments of the Irish sporting year, football final or hurling final, when the teams are going down towards the hill and the noise and just the crescendo of this sort of Mexican wave of noise building and building. As a player, when you're getting there, is it literally the hairs are up in the back of your neck?
Oh, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Like before you do it for the first time, you always think this is, when you're looking at the players, they look kind of so focused, they look maybe nervous and that, and you're like, geez, I'd hate to be there kind of a thing, because the pressure that must be on them must be unbelievable. But that is gone at that stage. When you get into that parade, that's probably the most enjoyable part of the pre-match, because, I don't know, it's hard to explain. You're walking around. The first few years, you're told to look at the ground. So you're kind of looking down, wondering who's out in the stand. And I better look focused here in case Brian is looking at me. But, I made that mistake my first year. And then when we got to the hour on, I looked up and what?
Oh, sorry. Okay, go on.
And then I looked up after looking at the ground for the whole All-Ireland final parade, looked up and I said, oh my God, there's some crowd here. The nerves hit you then, but no, the parade is magic. It's absolute magic. In my later years, what I tried to do was look around at the crowd, not look for people, but just to build myself up that this is the way it is, because there's no point in going into your number 5 position and then getting a fright that you look up, there's 87,000 people at the game. So I tried to build in that into the warm-up and really, focus on half 3, but let's get used to this crowd, let's get used to these surroundings. And then the breakaway, you run into your position and the hour on the vein. And I used to get a crazy habit where I used to have to scratch the middle of my hand. And I don't know what it was. It used to happen, never happens to me in life, except for I'm in the All-Ireland in the hour on the vein for an All-Ireland final or a big game. But and then you get into your position then, and your man usually hits you a few digs and you don't react, and on you go.
Yeah, it's a shame for these players that they won't get to experience all of that, but I guess the medal at the end of it looks the exact same for whoever comes out victorious on Sunday. Let's talk about the match then, Tommy. Waterford against Limerick. Any amount of analysis on the matchups, and listening to some brilliant analysis from Paddy Stapleton yesterday morning. A lot of it seems to be focusing around the 2 half-forward lines. What are you looking at in terms of the matchups that you're most looking forward to?
Yeah, well, if you mention the half-forward lines, you have to mention, I suppose, Garrod Hegarty, Cian Lynch. Cian Lynch is kind of the boy wonder of Limerick. He's the boy wonder of Ireland at the moment. He's this real humble guy. He goes to Mass of a Sunday. He says his prayers. He's really good. I think he's a non-drinker. He's really, happy-go-lucky kind of a guy, and just dazzles with that stick. Even you see the last day against Galway, he wasn't in the game a whole lot. Last 15, 20 minutes when the game was there to be won, he steps up and is absolutely brilliant. So whoever picks up Cian Lynch, whether he's centre forward or whether he's midfield, that will have a major part of the game, because when he's going well, I find Limerick are going well.
Who should pick him up?
I think Kevin Moran is going to pick up Garrod Hegarty. I think if he's centre forward, he'll roam around. I think Liam Cahill likes the traditional type of a backline where Tadhg de Burca is left just in that centre-back role, where he's not a sweeper, but a centre-back was always given that licence that if he wanted to sweep, he could. If he wanted to step up on his man, he could do that. The kind of choice was his, really. So I would still like Waterford to keep with that formation. So it's who picks up Cian Lynch, it's the midfielders. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Kieran Bennett or someone comes back out the field, and just every time Lynch comes deep, that he picks him up, and when he's up centre forward, then he's left to his marker, which will be Tadhg de Burca. So that's what I think. Tadhg de Burca is, on defensively, I think he's the best back in Ireland at the moment, without a shadow of a doubt. We all wondered, could he transfer from that sweeper role into your orthodox centre back, and I think he's even better at this job. because he's able to mark his man and do everything else that centre back. He's brilliant in the air, Nathan. And for a guy to, centre back, full back, to catch balls out of the air, crowd or no crowd, it's inspirational, and it just gives a fierce lift to the team. So I would see Tadhg Burke at centre back, but you asked me who pick up Cian Lynch, the half-hour line midfield for Waterford.
Tommy, in terms of the wing-backs, the likes of Kyle Hayes and Cam Lyons, it's been mentioned how good they've been this year. What have you made of their role, I suppose, and the kind of attacking play that they're bringing to the 5 and 7 position?
Yeah, well, if we look at Cam Lyons, first of all, you see, it's going to suit, well, look at the two guys, really. It's going to suit them. They're very comfortable attacking, Tommy. So they're not just going to sit back, maybe holding their wing-back position. And if you know, every half-forward in the country is told now, like probably started with Brian Dooher back in that great Tyrone team of 03, 05, 08, where they were brilliant. They're nearly as important to the team going back defending as they were attacking. Well, every half-forward in hurling, if you go up along the lines, Owen Larkin has done it for the last few years. Now you have Gerard Hegarty and Tom Morrissey. But if they do that, that means the half-back, if he doesn't stay back there, he has the opportunity to attack. And that's where I think we've seen the joys of Kyle Hayes and Cam Lyons this summer, is that when their direct opponent has gone back helping out the defence, they're not just sitting there waiting for the ball to come back down. They're gone up, and when they get the ball, they do damage. You know, we've seen them scoring goals, scoring points, setting up goals and points. So I think the two guys, they will have a crucial bearing on the game.
The role of the half-backs, Tommy, has that changed dramatically? Listen, you chip in with your scores here and there, and like we're talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold there as a full-back in football. There's an expectation now that he's almost more of an attacker than a defender. For half-backs now, is there less pressure to be a good defender and more to be an additional figure in the attack?
Yeah, you have to be able to do both, really, Nathan. Like, you go back to, you know, it probably started changing when Cork maybe were doing their running game, and then, you know, it probably progressed to different game plans going, like, traditionally it was always the backs defended, the forwards scored. Like, even a back scoring wasn't even a great thing because he should be hitting the ball into the forwards. So it definitely has changed in the last few years that you have to be able to get up and help your half-forward line, because if you sit back, you see, when I was a wing back playing the way I played, you wouldn't get away with it now, because back then, if you got the ball in the backs, you clear the ball as fast as you can, get it up and out of defence as quick and as fast as you can and as long as you can. So as a wing back, we'll say on our line, it used to be myself, Hoagie, Tenno, JJ maybe. So when the ball, a corner back picked it up or a wing back picked it up, the only thing that was in our heads was, where is this going to land? You weren't worried about really your man going for a shot, because if he got a shot, the manager probably would have tore strips out of him, you know, for going short. So we were just wondering, where is this ball going to land? Is it going to be in the full back line or half back line? You position yourself then accordingly and try and catch it. Towards now, you have so many things going on. So if your man is even 5 or 10 yards off you, back then there wouldn't be a hope or it wouldn't be a prayer he'd get the ball. Nowadays he will get it. So it's important that you can do both now, Nathan, but it's definitely important that not maybe that you can attack, but maybe that you can pick up your man when he does go deep, that You're not just hanging around.
Eamon Donoghue has an interesting article in the Irish Times today about Limerick and where they concede frees, and how in every game so far they've conceded more frees than the opposition, but that is not hurting them because of where they're giving away those frees. That, I guess, it is the sign of a very good team, maybe even a great team, that you know when to be cynical, that they know in the opposition side of the field it slows down the transition very quickly. Is that something that you've noticed from Limerick? Is that very much part of their game plan? Is tactical fouling essentially is what it is?
Yeah, no, I don't, because it's too easy to pick up yellow cards and red cards now, Nathan, to be tactically fouling. You know, you give away a couple of frees or you're on a yellow card, then your manager can take you off because he's afraid you're going to get a red card. So I think whether the management, and no, I don't think John Kiley, Paul Kinnerk, I don't think it's in their blood. I don't think it's in their mindsets. They're winners, but I think very fair winners. They want to win, but they want to win it doing it the right way. So no, I didn't see the article, but just trying to maybe look at it right now off the cuff, I would say it's because of the sheer amount of tackling to do out in the middle third. So if you look at the Limerick, most teams now are playing with 2 men inside. So when you have 2 men inside, you're not really going to give away frees because you're probably chasing the ball you know, say if Waterford have only 2 men inside on Limerick, well, most of the time the Limerick players will get the ball. And if they don't, the Waterford guys will be putting it over the bar, that they'll have very little chance to foul them. If you look at, we'll say, when Stephen Bennett gets the ball, maybe he'll be after doing a run, so he'll get the ball out in space in front, and there'll be little chance to foul him. So I just think it's the sheer numbers that Limerick have out in the middle third, and they're brilliant. Their intensity, their tackling is excellent. And in hurling, there's so many things with high arms and hurls flying around everywhere, you can give away free. So no, I don't think it's tactical fouling. I just think it's the sheer numbers that are out there and the intensity that they go about their business.
Tommy, in terms of the challenge that Waterford have as underdogs and the message that Liam Cahill and Mikey Beavens are going to be talking about this week or maybe over the last couple of weeks, a few weeks ago you spoke about the importance of goals. And you told a great story about your coach in Kieran's that would have always kind of passed that message on to players. Like, is it as simple as that this week? Do Waterford need to chase goals? Do they need to be really aggressive in that sense early on?
Yeah, they need to get goals. I wouldn't say chase goals, because when you're trying to chase goals, they don't really happen. It's just when the chance comes, you go for it instead of tapping over and getting your easy point. Like, you go back to Desi Hutchinson, like, this is the Premier League footballer, like his speed, like the speed of this guy. So when he gets a chance, he can go past his man and score a goal. Like, they could be beaten by Clare a few weeks ago, Tommy. Where he scored 2 goals and set up a goal. And if you look at the 3 goals that he was involved in, like the one where he turned on his sixpence, that was speed. Like, I remember we start as 15-year-olds. We said in Tullaroan we'd start up a soccer team. You know, I've never played the game, probably never watched the game before, and we set up a team under 15 anyway. And you know, we were talking, we were missing it, of course, but we were talking, you know, we might get picked up by Arsenal or United. And what we heard from the scouts that time was that it was all about your first 5 yards, that it didn't matter how good you were at soccer. If you didn't have them first 5 yards, they wouldn't look at you. And now we got bet 18-0 and we gave it up after about 4 games. Evergreen Betis did a great team, actually, that team. Owen McCormack, Brian Barry, the trials over at Celtic, and I think Owen McCormack had trials with maybe West Ham. So listen, they were a good team. Where
did you play, Tommy?
I was right back. I was the very same as I was in the hurl, just hoofed the ball as far as I could when I got it. But like, you know, I've actually, my auntie played international soccer for Ireland.
Right.
Ursula Mulcahy. But I didn't get any of them traits, you know. But my first cousin, Davy Mulcahy, played League of Ireland for I'd say 15 years. And Joseph played for, I think it's St. Michael's, is it, in Tip Town. They were after winning 4 or 5 cups. They were brilliant. And like, I remember one Christmas, we were in their house, you know. This wasn't so long ago, maybe 5 or 10 years ago. But, you know, I'm messing and joking. We're down in the street and we had a race. And it was embarrassing, the speed of these guys. And you know, soccer players, like, just going back to my point, the soccer players, the top soccer players, it's all about speed. And you go back to Desi Hutchinson, like, when he gets the ball, he's gone. And there's no catch. Doesn't matter how good a hurler you are. He's gone and you can't catch him. And his vision then, you have to be able to play around with the ball. He set up that goal for Jack Fagan that nobody would have set up. I just thought, I was listening to Joe Malloy's interview with some guy during the week there about Messi and Ronaldo. And they were just talking about how players couldn't learn from Messi because he just did things so naturally. But I think Desi Hutchinson, you could train a guy, you know, for 10 years and you wouldn't have been able to train him how to do that move in that split second, in that moment. So I think Desi Hutchinson, Tommy, going back to your point about goals, with him in there with Bennett, the chance they get goals win matches, and them boys won't be forcing it. It's just, if it's on, they'll go for it. And it has been coached by Liam Cahill.
Just a really quick one on Desi Hutchinson there, Tommy. Like, we can see his speed rapidly on the pitch physically, but in terms of speed of thought, like, that's something that's jumped out about Desi Hutchinson on the pitch. Was there other players in the Kilkenny dressing room that just had sharper minds than anyone else? Is there anyone in particular that they were just quicker the way they thought about the game?
Yeah, all them forwards were. TJ Reid. TJ Reid, like, if you go back, do you remember the goal? You might remember it now off the cuff, but he scored a goal in the All-Ireland semi-final against Waterford. I think it was 2015. So the ball came in high, and Waterford were playing the sweeper system that time. So the ball came in, right? It went behind him. He was able to turn, like Desi was, the way he turned against Clare that day. He turned really, really fast, right? Picked up the ball and put the ball into the back of the net down at the Hill 16 end. Well, I don't know, was I talking to him or somebody was talking to TJ afterwards? And what happened was, as the high ball was coming in, and TJ catches maybe 8 out of 10 balls anyway, but he knew that the man he was marking would try and play him as opposed to try and play the ball. He'd let the ball in behind either to the sweeper or to a goalie. So as he was jumping to catch the ball, he said he was turning. He knew that your man was going to play him, so he was kind of only half trying to catch the ball. And he turned nearly in midair, was turned as your man was probably hitting the ground, his opponent from Waterford, and had the ball up. And that's genius. There's nobody thinks of that. Another lad, JJ Delaney, I remember JJ was telling us about, he was it Bonner or Dan Shanahan caught the ball on him in the square. I think it was Bonner. Caught the ball in the square. Big match, All-Ireland semi-final or All-Ireland final. And most people would foul a guy there. You take the yellow or whatever and foul a guy. You don't let him score a goal anyway. And he knew that Bonner would try and go around him. So he just held him up. So he knew in that split second, imagine that, a lad catches the ball in the square, big moment, big game. He knew that the player he was marking would try and go around him as opposed to turn and twist and strike it into the top corner. So he had that genius of mind in that moment to be able to not hold off this guy and then try and hooker block him, So, yeah.
It's not just the hurling final on this weekend. You probably got more interest in the Camogie final on Saturday, Tommy. Grace going to be part of the Kilkenny side. Repeat against Galway. What's the plan for the weekend?
Yeah, so we'll be looking at that now Saturday evening.
Does the whole family gather round?
Yeah, well, listen, like my house and Mammy's house will, because we're right beside each other here, so we'll all gather. That the rest of the lads are kind of live in different places, so they'll be in their own houses. But yeah, no, we'll watch that match together. It'll be great. Like it's a big final for us because we're after having so much heartbreak over the last 2 years. And 3 years in a row they're after getting beaten. The 1-16, and that was after heartbreak before that. So. I think the girls have a new manager in there this year, Brian Dowling, and you can't beat the bit of freshness. So maybe that weight of expectation, that pressure isn't on them with the new management team. Henry Shefflin's brother Tommy is in there, Philly Larkin is in there, Pat O'Neill is in there. Huge characters in their own right. Who I always felt if you have big leaders, big characters in the management team, or maybe as the older parts of the team, it takes the pressure off the rest of the team. So I think with that management in this year, it'll take pressure off them. The players are going in as underdogs. Galway are the All-Ireland champions. Kilkenny didn't play well against Cork. Probably shouldn't have won that match. So we're very excited. We're very, I suppose we're hoping, that we can get across the line. But big day out for us.
Yeah. I won't ask you for a prediction on that. I'm sure I know which side you're going to go on. But there are still 3 days to go to the hurling final. You're going to be at Croke Park for us on Sunday. So, listen, this comes with a health warning. You're entitled to change your mind when you're on with Joe on Sunday afternoon. You can go the other way. Right now, Thursday morning, 3 days out. Is it Waterford or Limerick for Tommy Walsh?
It's Limerick. It's Limerick. But I get, Waterford, they have a chance to get goals. But I'm going with Limerick. Why, Nathan? I think they deserve that respect. They have done everything right for the last couple of years, last 3 years. They got caught in the semi-final last year, but only in the first 10-15 minutes. They still turned it around on that day with a huge comeback, and we're just unlucky not to come back in the end. It was probably just, a decision in the end nearly cost them the draw game. I think they deserve the people's respect. They've done everything right. They're the All-Ireland champions of 2018. They're playing with a hunger that they've never won the All-Ireland before. They've lost the final 4 times from 73 to 2018, Nathan. Like Limerick, like everyone, the neutral will probably be shouting for Waterford. They haven't won it since 59. But Limerick have had a lot of heartbreak as well. Lost 4 times in 73, won in 18, had the heartbreak last year. So I'm expecting a massive match. And there's winners all over, Nathan. Like the Limerick guys have won minor, 21 and senior. The Waterford guys have won minor, under 21, Fitzgibbons, Harty Cups. So there's winners all around. The 2 managers are winners. So it's going to be an epic battle, and I'm going to tip Limerick.
I'm pumped already, Tommy. I am pumped already. We look forward to hearing you on Sunday. There's a long way to go. You don't want to peak too early, I guess. That's the one thing we've learned here. Wait till you're just finishing up on the walk around Croke Park. That's when you really want to be at it.
That's it, Nathan.
Great stuff, Tommy. Well, enjoy Sunday. We'll talk to you then.
Thank you. Bye.
If you missed any of that, you'll get the full thing back on the OTB Sports app. Just subscribe to all our GA podcasts. You will get all of them then over the coming weeks. You'll get Bernard Brogan's podcast in there as well with Jack McCaffrey. It is the run into Christmas, and to help you celebrate an unusual festive season and to stay close to the team of us, Vodafone want to fill your Christmas stocking. Every morning this week, we have a selection of brilliant gifts to give away. This morning you can win a signed copy of Rob Kearney's book, No Hiding, a Lions jersey and an Irish rugby jersey. To get your name in the hat, just tell us today's mystery voice.
I've apologised to the people that matter. I'm not going to sit here and apologise to the whole world.
It's fairly straightforward. To enter, just send your guess to WhatsApp on 0879 180 180 and we will reveal the answer and the winner before we leave you at 9:30 this morning. And if you don't win today, tune in again tomorrow for more chances to win. It is all with thanks to Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. John Duggan is in studio. Morning, John.
Nathan, Tommy, how are we doing?
Good. We're hanging in there. I woke up early yesterday morning, John. I was tuned in and finally Dublin got their voice. Dublin got their voice around funding. Dublin got their... finally somebody backed Dublin. Got their corner. You don't want Dublin split, whereas I want Dublin split at least 4 ways, John. Because
well, you won't want them split on Saturday week, Nathan, when Mayo win the All-Ireland for the first time since 1951, because we know what's going to happen for you, don't we? We need to give somebody else a chance, somebody else a bit of glory, somebody else a Sam Maguire Cup, and it'll be Mayo who will gracefully accept it on Saturday week.
No, I've learnt my lesson after many, many years of heartbreak. I'm not, for once, revving up the hype around Mayo. This Dublin team is quite simply unstoppable. And listen, as Mayo people, we're just blessed to be able to watch this Dublin team and to share a pitch with them. And that is the attitude that we're bringing into this final.
I think Mayo have a great chance. Played really well against Tipperary. Cillian O'Connor, fantastic form. You can see Kieran McDonald's work. Aidan O'Shea, like Tommy Conroy's another excellent addition. I think they've got a chance. I think Dublin, even with the questions to Desi Farrell and Dean Rock and Johnny Cooper, everybody was asking him the same question, and even that must seep into the mind a little bit. They're
you
not
think complacency could be a factor.
It's not complacency. I think they're not machines, and they're amateur players, and this is not professional sport. And everybody thinks that Dublin are professional and they're financially doped. Some people think that, which I disagree with, because when I hear the words financial doping, I hear the word that to me is an association with cheating. Dublin have not cheated to win 5 All-Irelands in a row. They've won them legitimately and with complete integrity. Whatever about the structures and the help that the GA gave to the sport in the capital in the last 20 years.
We are going to be united, John, when they do eventually split Dublin, though, because as we discovered this morning, the real injustice here is the north side, south side split. Currently, there's only 4 or 5 Southsiders on this team, and we know that John Costello's a Northsider, so really, when you dig down into it, where's all the money been going? It's been going to Ballymun, it's been going to Whitehall, Columkills, it's been going to Castleknock, you name it. It hasn't been going to these small little clubs on the south side like Ballyboden and Kilmacud and Coola and Jude's. You know, these are the clubs that are struggling while the north side takes over.
Yeah, and Coola had to get through those struggles to win those 2 All-Ireland hurling titles in a row in the last few years. Yeah, it's been a big struggle. It was a big deal. I was at Clonkin College in Dean's Grange is where I went to school, and in '95 they brought the cup to the school, and to win an All-Ireland then for Dublin was a rarity. We hadn't won one in 12 years. Now they're going for 6 in a row. And I think the Ballyboden and Kilmacud and Coola will be okay. I think they'll cope.
John, I think we'll save this conversation for January. I think you're probably right. There's no point having it at the minute. I'm not sure how directly it impacts this current Dublin team, but I think we need to have this split conversation. Whether or not it happens or it should happen, I think in a couple of weeks' time, we let the All-Ireland final play out first.
Absolutely. And the fact that we have an All-Ireland final is a great thing. And for Limerick and Waterford as well on Sunday. It's just great for the country that we have these games, and we're lucky enough that we've actually had them. So splitting the county, as I've said on yesterday's show, I have no interest in it. I have no interest in being a supporter of Fingal or North Dublin or West Dublin or whatever like that. Your identity is as a person from a county.
If you're not sure what All-Ireland Final Day is all about, just go and listen to Tommy Walsh talking about the 5-6 minutes around being in the tunnel, in the dressing room, the walk around. And honestly, it's the one thing. Yes, it's an All-Ireland final, but when the players walk around and if they do the parade and there's just nothing there, there's just this empty silence on Sunday and on Saturday week, you're going to feel more than ever, I think, the absence of the supporters. And maybe it is a good reminder of the year that we have gone through, but it is such a terrible shame. And I know Aidan O'Shea has been talking about maybe allowing family in. I don't think it's simply going to be possible. But yeah it just
go on, Tommy. On that, Nathan, like you're right. Listen back to Tommy Walsh. I had hairs in the back of my neck when we were talking about the All-Ireland parade earlier on, and that kind of roar that you're talking about the hill. But I think the semi-finals will help the teams and the players settle a little bit, that they all got to play in Croke Park, and they've experienced the kind of emptiness of what it feels like. So hopefully that doesn't have an impact on performances. You'd hope it doesn't.
I think when the whistle goes, I think they get into process and they get into the moment. I think beforehand, all of these things are going through their minds, but I think once the game starts, they're into process, they're into actually what's happening, because they don't have time to think about anything else.
John, you're going to run through a couple of stories. Paolo Rossi, more sad news?
Very sad news. Like 2 weeks after Maradona passed away, lads, Paolo Rossi has died at the age of 64. News breaking overnight from RAI television in Italy, the former Juventus striker. So he lit up the 1982 World Cup in Spain, and described by John Motson when he scored a hat-trick against Brazil.
Tardelli, and it's been turned in. Paolo Rossi was there again. Unbelievable. It's 3-2 to Italy.
Talk about the beautiful game, Jogo Bonito. That Brazilian team was an amazing team, and Paolo Rossi, they knocked them out. And in the final against West Germany, he scored 1, he scored 2 in the semi-final. He'd only returned to that tournament because he'd been banned for 2 years for being involved in a match-fixing scandal with Perugia, being involved at the time. There was definitely claims that he never did anything wrong, but he just kind of came out of nowhere and burst onto the scene with that World Cup success in '82, won the European Cup in '85, Juventus, a couple of league titles. So very sad that he would pass away a couple of weeks after Maradona.
A reminder again that the World Cup was the be-all and end-all for so long. Everybody who grew up in the 80s, 90s knew of Paolo Rossi, because when you achieved what he achieved in the World Cup, you're never going to be forgotten.
No, you're not. He scored, 134 goals in a club career. He was a striker that, like most strikers, fed off confidence and was always at the end of something. So his goals in that World Cup were very much poacher's goals, ghosting in, scoring. And he had a lot of talent from an early age with Vicenza and then the '78 World Cup, and that's when he really caught fire. Just on the terms of the football last night, Mo Salah, now 22 goals, club record for Liverpool in the Champions League, a 1-1 draw at Midtjylland. Caoimhe Kelleher, his first goal conceded in 3 games. Jurgen Klopp, singing a lot of praises about the virtues of Mo Salah.
Exceptional player, absolute exceptional player. Since we worked together, obviously a lot of things clicked really. Mo is a very exceptional player. I think nobody doubted it, but if you need numbers to prove, then he delivers that as well.
And speaking of the hurling final, lads, just check out the column I've done for OTBsports.com just about, it's kind of, I suppose, underplayed in the pandemic a little bit, but the fact that we got a Limerick-Waterford final, I think, is a brilliant thing. Cork and Tipperary dominated hurling in Munster for so many years. Limerick have only won 2 All-Irelands in 80 years. Waterford have only won 2 All-Irelands in their history. Great for their supporters, even though they're at home or in gastropubs at the weekend, to be watching this.
Yeah, great stuff. It is, as you say, the first time they've ever met in a hurling final, and we'll chat to you a bit more about that tomorrow. John, great stuff as always.
Thanks, lads.
All right, let's turn our attention to rugby. Keith Wood is on the line. Good morning, Keith.
Morning, Nathan. How are you?
I'm okay. So ordinarily, a couple of days out from the start of the Champions Cup, that would be the focus of this conversation. But really, the main talking point in rugby this week has been around, once again, concussion and this story that a group of 8 former internationals are planning legal action against World Rugby and the various rugby unions for negligence around brain injuries they suffered during their career. No Irish players right now involved in the initial class action that's been put together in London by a lawyer called Richard Boardman, but it's understood his law firm have written to up to 70 former Irish internationals. He is representing this initial group and says that he believes up to 50% of former professional rugby players could end up with neurological complications in retirement. Says immediate changes need to be made to the game to protect the current generation and future players. And I guess to really ram it home, a lot of people will have read the interview earlier this week with Steve Thompson, who was a part of England's 2003 World Cup winning squad, only 42, revealed he has no memory of participating at that tournament, diagnosed with early onset dementia. It's all pretty frightening, Keith.
It's terrifying, actually. And the Steve Thompson interview on the television and Alex Popham, listening to them talk, listening to their wives talk at the degradation over a period of time is unbelievably frightening, actually. And it's funny because you think that this would be part and parcel of conversations over a long period of time. Of course, we've always had a worry about concussion, but I didn't know about either of these cases or any of the other ones until I read the newspaper 2 or 3 days ago as well. And and that's not with my head in the sand. I just hadn't come across the guys. It wasn't something that was part of my peer group. And I find it really, really frightening to look at it. And I think some of the reaction afterwards is alarmist, and maybe it should be alarmist, and maybe that is the appropriate response at this stage. And I do think a lot of changes have happened. I do think there's an awful lot more have to happen. And I do think you have to end up looking at this in a very different way. And so do you look at it entirely different from a kids or amateur net system to a professional system? And should there be entirely different setups for it? Because it is quite literally frightening, and you can't kind of gloss over this in any way, shape or form.
So you weren't one of the former Irish players that Richard Boardman has been in touch with? No,
absolutely not. And for me, I definitely had concussions in my career. I had 3 that I know about, if that makes sense. And the definition of concussion was, well, the definition may have been the same, but the definition within the sport for us was maybe slightly different. I was also very fortunate, I think, to play at a particular time where we had pretty strong doctors. Mick Malloy was our doctor with the IRFU, and on one occasion when I did get concussed, we were playing Italy in the mid-90s, and my concussions were slightly unusual too, I think, in that my vision was affected. I didn't have a pain in the head. I never felt sick afterwards. I didn't get foggy afterwards. I couldn't see the ball properly. So I said it to Peter Clossy, who shouted at me in no uncertain terms to get the hell off the field. I went off the field, I went in, had a cold shower, and I felt perfect immediately. And I said, Mick, I feel great now, I feel perfect. And he said, yeah, that's fantastic, you're out for 3 weeks. And I said, no, but I feel great. And he said, great, fantastic, you're out for 3 weeks. And that was what it was up until, I think, 2005, 2006, where concussion was a mandatory. I think it was 22 days out, and I think in many respects it seems to be a little bit frightening sometimes when it's down to 6 or 7 days now. And I know there are far more tests within them. We haven't seen the full extent of how those tests work and do or don't work. So it's look, I think I just think it's a disturbing. Trying to look at it in this fashion is just very, very disturbing.
But when you read that interview then with Steve Thompson, and you talk about 3 concussions during your career, like what he's talking about is frightening, where it almost seemed like it was a daily occurrence at training, that it was just part and parcel of his training sessions, that he'd get some sort of a bang and he'd be down, and was it people would say he's having a bit of a sleep and he'd be up again in a couple of minutes. Have you in any way been going back over your career thinking, well, yes, I know about 3, but actually were there things that were happening to my body at the time that I didn't fully realise the seriousness of what was happening, that it was just part of the game, it was just a little knock at the time, whereas it seems now maybe that these were more serious than just a little knock?
Well, I think it's different for every person. It's different to how their genetic makeup is, how they react to elements or not. But we actually don't really know. That's part of the issue with it. I would have said there were times that I would have had, I think you described them as concussive events. They'd be considered concussion now, I think, fair enough. But the story that he had of the constant element, I didn't have that at all. And I find myself incredibly fortunate with the fact that is. And I just can't get over I think there's a huge amount of shock, and I can't get over the amount of sympathy that has to go for these players, and something has to be done to sort them out. So there's rugby is going to go into a very difficult situation where and an understandably difficult situation where they have to come to terms with this properly, just like NFL did from 2005 on.
Keith, when you talk about changes that have been made already to the game over the last 10, 15 years, and you also mentioned that more changes need to happen and quickly, what changes would that be?
Look, for me, it's different. I've been talking about. But I'm not saying I'm talking about this all the time, because I haven't. Because you talk about it, then you move on to something else, and maybe this is the time not to move on to something else. And for me, I think since the game went professional, and that's one of the trigger points that's highlighted maybe the change in the damage that's been done, but that the game has become far more complex, far less space on the field. Bigger, stronger, faster, all those things. When you're professional, you can analyze everybody, so that means there's no space. So that's fine for professionals and adults, and it may not be fine, as it turns out, because you need to have all the facts there in front of you. And one of the comments that was said was, I knew my body'd be broken, but I didn't expect my mind to be. That's a harrowing thought. But for me, I think there could be and should be a change within amateur and schools, because it is a fantastic game. And I don't think anybody, I think some people would be worried and would say that they don't want their kids to play. I think the level of risk is an awful lot lower at children, though of course there is a risk, and there's a risk in all things. But I do think a lot of the law changes that have happened since the game went professional are suitable and appropriate for professional sports people, and may not be for kids. So the lifting in the line out, some of the scrummaging, some of the tackling, maybe the tackle height. I don't think it would affect the game as too badly if you change those to make the game infinite. If you can make the game infinitely safer for kids, I think that's a much better place to be anyway, as a standard. So I don't know that will change how the game is played, and I don't think that will stop people becoming professional sports people afterwards if it's deemed to be fit that they can do so. So they're the sort of changes I'd look at. I mean, when the HIA came in, I have to admit I would have been in the Barry O'Driscoll camp, which was he didn't like the idea of it because the laws were that if you had suspected concussion, you were taken off the field. But not taken off the field and then assessed off the field. You're taken off the field, and that suspected concussion was considered to be a concussion. So I do think there's a huge amount of work has gone on with it. I still don't know that it's there yet. I also know of a couple of diagnostics company that are in the middle of trying to do concussion markers for blood tests, but that wouldn't be instantaneous either. There is a huge amount, and has been a huge amount doing it. But this brings it to very stark relief that these things need to be done far sooner, far more quickly.
The HIA is going to come under major scrutiny now, I would expect. Jamie Cudmore was on with Joe last night talking about his personal experience, and thankfully no long-term damage that he knows of just yet. But again, he was making the point that you don't need to be knocked out to suffer damage to your head from a collision, and that still the HIA, the return to play protocols, it seems somewhat coincidental that it's 6 days and that Saturday to Saturday you can be back from 1 week to the next. Do you expect when a storm like this emerges that World Rugby's response is instant? Do you expect that things are going to change quite dramatically in terms of how the game is played, in terms of how head injuries are treated? Can we expect a change in that quite quickly, or is it unfortunately just the way of the world that this could end up being quite a long process, and that some of those playing where you'd have to expect the hits are getting heavier all the time, that actually players playing now, it may be too late for some of them?
I actually think some of the changes will be nearly instantaneous, because I think they'll have to be. And I looked at the campaigners. They had a 15-point idea of things that they wanted to change. So when I looked at that, I said, well, I don't know that some of those things will happen straight away, but I do think that some of them can happen straight away. And so when you have a little look at whether there could be a limit to substitutes, and we've talked about that often, Nathan, and the idea of limiting the substitutes is that it is much harder to play for 80 minutes if you're a couple of stone heavier than you are normally. I know that myself. I had 1 year in 98 where I was a stone heavier. I was 18 stone, and I didn't finish an international. I was shattered at 60, 65 minutes. And ultimately, for the rest of my career after that, I lost that weight. It was great for scrummaging, but not great for lasting 80 minutes. And I was then able to kind of keep going for 80 minutes. So I think you could limit it. You could have 7 or 8 guys on the bench, but you might only be able to use 2 or 3 of them. I think that does make a bit of a difference to size. Some of the other ones I think that could change, better testing in pre-season, I think that could be done very, very quickly. Concussion spotters to have the authority to remove players with symptoms, I think that is that could happen almost immediately. You know, there's a lot of those things that could happen straight away. Full set of medical tests that are done at the start of every season, better care after retirement. These are things that could be enacted pretty quickly. Some of the others will require study. Some of the other ones will require lawyers, you know, and those ones make things go much slower. But look, I could see rugby has to do the right thing in this instance. Now, I think rugby will say that for a huge amount they have been, but the evidence of this points out the fact that there's a lot of people that are suffering quite badly at an early age, and that's not something that you want to have afterwards. So it isn't ban rugby. It isn't stop rugby. It is try and make it fully aware of everything that can happen. I think you have to make certain that you protect children. I think that is something that is essential. And you have to have all the facts laid out in front of people. And I do think rugby has tried to make those changes, but maybe it hasn't happened fast enough. I don't know. But for me, I'm still in a state of shock for these reports to have come out over the last few days.
You touched on the NFL earlier and how they dealt with this. Well, part of it was that they ended up paying close to $1 billion in compensation. The NHL had a similar scenario. On your State of the Union series, we did a pretty deep dive into the future of rugby and COVID and the financial implications of all of that and the issues that we're facing rugby. How worrying for the unions is this development? I guess they must have been expecting it, considering the conversations that have been going on in recent years, because it does feel as though this is going to only end one way when you see these sort of cases starting to happen.
Look, I'm sure it's going to be worrying for them in a financial perspective, but I think we should put that aside for the time being and worry about it for the health perspective. And like, I'm not saying you cover everybody in cotton wool. I'm not saying that you stop doing absolutely everything, but you make every step you possibly can to make it some way safer and still keep what it is as a game, you know. And I do believe that there's an element of risk in everything. And as I said, I played at a time, and of course there was a bit of macho stuff that you can play on, you're fine. But we also had that strength, that certainty. You know, we talked about certainty the other day just in terms of playing, but the certainty of the medical staff saying you're concussed, you're out for 22 days. You know, you didn't argue with that, you know. So I don't know. I think things have changed all the time. I think there could be big financial ramifications. But for me, I think you need to look at it in terms of what you want the sport to stand for over time. And that has to be something that is a safe, with a manageable level of risk. I mean, look, there's a saying that exercise is good for you, sport is bad for you. Well, you do get kind of smashed up a fair bit when you play. Again, I'd go back to the line that you expect your body to do it and you accept that from it. Like I started trying to think of this with Steve Thompson the other day. He said if he had his time again, he wouldn't do it. I don't feel like that at the present moment in time, but actually maybe I would if I had dementia and if my faculties were beginning to diminish. Maybe that is the case for it. And so if you can mitigate and make changes so that becomes a far, far smaller risk, I think that's the right thing to do.
And just finally, Keith, on the ramifications and the future of the game, you have kids playing the game. In terms of them playing the game, have you any concerns? And also being around underage rugby, have you noticed any sort of drop-off because of the awareness of head injuries and stories like this, that actually parents simply don't want their kids playing the game?
Of course. Well, of course, I have seen that. And I remember being asked once, I've been involved with paralysis in sport for a long time. I got involved about 25 or 6 years ago. And I remember a mother saying to me, how can you tell me that my son should absolutely play the game? I said, I don't ever tell you that. You have to make your decisions yourself as to what you do. There is risk in everything. I said, what I would say is you make certain that you put your kids in a club that have very good coaches that make certain that they do things as well as they possibly can. And you try and mitigate against it as much as you possibly can. for me, that's a reasoned argument, but I don't tell people you have to play. I've 3 sons who play. Of course, it frightens me a fair bit. They love the game, and whether I want them to be a professional or not is a moot point for me, because one of them's an adult, the other 2 are getting very close to being there. They will make their own decisions. For us, it's to try and make certain that they have the best information to hand so that they can make those decisions for themselves. That's the nature of parenting, in as much as I can see it. But look, I love the game. But I am shocked by what we've seen in this last week.
All right, thanks a lot, Keith. We'll talk a lot more about that, I'm sure, over the coming weeks. Keith Wood, you'll be part of our commentary team at the weekend for the Keith Wood derby, as it is Munster against Harlequins in the Champions Cup on Sunday evening. We'll also have Racing against Connacht as the Heineken Champions Cup. Live and exclusive commentary returns to Off the Ball. If you missed any of that, get onto the OTB Sports app and subscribe to all our rugby podcasts. Now, we're going to take a very quick break, and then we're going to talk some more hurling with the former Tipperary hurler, John O'Brien.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Looking for a football show with a bit of a twist? Team 33, the football magazine show for the football purists.
And it's been a complete failure for English teams in the European formats this year, Colin.
I don't know.
Come on, it has! They had one team in the quarter-final.
The very best interviews with the cult heroes of the past, and a look at the cultural side of football. Team 33, live at 9 p.m. every Friday on OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
Follow the leader, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, the world's best-selling plug-in hybrid, is now available with 0% finance and a free home charge point worth €800. Leading the charge in plug-in hybrid technology, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. Book a test drive at your local dealer today. Mitsubishi, drive your ambition. Terms and conditions apply. See mitsubishimotors.ie. Lending criteria applies. This is a hire purchase agreement provided by Bank of Ireland Finance.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
Good morning, it's just gone 9:05. You're watching OTB AM. Nathan and Tommy with you this morning. We're live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Let's talk to John O'Brien, former All-Ireland winning hurler with Tipperary. Morning, John.
Hey, Nathan, are you well?
I'm okay. We'll get on to the final in a moment, but funny, we were chatting a lot about Jack McCaffrey this morning and, you know, the end of the career, and often it comes up as to what's next. You've had quite an interesting post-hurling career that has now moved into whiskey.
Yeah, Nathan, we just launched a premium blended Irish whiskey called Jim Mac, named after my uncle. We collaborated with a distillery, award-winning distillery in Cork, to bring out the first expression. And yeah, we're really excited about it. The feedback so far has been amazing. So really looking forward to the journey that's ahead.
Was this a lifelong passion that you always wanted to have your own bottle of whiskey?
No, being honest with you, I suppose I've been looking at trends over the last number of years. Always been looking for something. I suppose after the hurling finished, you know, you put so much time and effort into it at such a high level that you want something that you can really get your teeth into. And I always wanted a product maybe that I could export. And I suppose my uncle Jim owns a bar in Timivera. It's been in the family since 1887. So, you know, the trends in spirits, brown spirits, have been growing at the expense of beer for years now, for maybe 20 years. You know, people are willing to spend more on high quality liquid when they do go out with less volume. So yeah, I was interested in that side of it, and we put together a good brand, and also then the liquid we made sure had to be good. You know, the brand stands out, but if the liquid isn't good, people aren't going to go back a second time. So a really positive feedback so far in the brand, and yeah, looking forward to what's ahead.
Well, neither myself or Tommy know what the liquid tastes like, because Ger Gilroy has pulled a fast one and said, yeah, John, come on, we'll chat about this. Send me up a couple of samples, and then doesn't even turn up for work. I'm not sure if the two are connected, but he tells me it's very good. So you have the Ger Gilroy seal of approval.
Yeah, well, that's it. Jer's given it the seal of approval, but many people have, which is great, Nathan. We have people that have bought twice in the last 2 weeks. So we launched that 10 days ago, and the feedback has been brilliant.
You mentioned your Uncle Jim, John. Can you tell us a bit about him? You mentioned the pub in Timivera. Was he a hurler?
Yeah, I suppose, look, we know
we know Jim for, I know him all my life, obviously, but in the village itself, he was seen as more like the chieftain of the village. Unfortunately, Jim passed away in April last year, but he was part of this process from the start. He got to taste the whiskey and was part of that. But at his funeral, I suppose, everything we knew about Jim, everything we thought about Jim, we got that back in spades with the stories. And the priest at the funeral actually mentioned, it was like the chieftain of the village had passed away, and he was that person. He was a solid guy. He was great fun, but he was ruthless as well on the hurling field. And the stories he had about hurling back in the day were brilliant to listen to. And yeah, he'd be sadly missed, but I think there's a nice tribute to him. The brand, the values that Jim stood for, we think resonate with people as well, because I think the tagline we have is every team, every town, every bar, everyone needs a Jim Mack. I think everyone knows a person like that in their family, in their community, that is that pillar of the community, and is looked up to, but also is great fun. And Jim was definitely that.
Yeah, and Jim Mack Whiskey will keep his name out there. Where can people buy it?
Sorry, Nathan?
Where can people buy the whiskey?
Oh, they can buy it online at Celtic Whiskey and on Irish malts. Actually, it was #1 selling Irish whiskey last week on Celtic Whiskey and Irish malts. So it was a brilliant start, and hope it continues.
All right, well, the very best of luck with it. Let's talk a little bit of hurling, because we're only 3 days away from the hurling final. When you think back to your days out on the pitch, 3 days away from the hurling final, are you very much in the mindset? Is every waking hour thinking about the game?
Not anymore, Nathan, thank God. It used to be, but I'm looking forward to this one because of probably the Tip connection that's there at the moment. Mikey Beavens would have been a club mate of mine for 10 years. I played beside Mikey, and I remember when I retired in 2014, on the local radio, I was asked, who's the best player you've ever played beside? And Mikey jumped into my mind, and I said Mikey Beavens. And a lot of people outside of Tipperary probably wouldn't have known who Mikey Beavens was at the time, but we know that we knew in Timuver that Mikey was going to go on to great things once he went into coaching. He went on to partner up with Liam Cahill, who he played minor with, and they were both great fun, but very driven and very ruthless, and that shows what they've done so far in their careers. They've gone on to win a minor, one under 20 and one under 21, and now they've pushed off in the water. Very ambitious, but ruthless. And I think when you see Mikey going down there, with Liam's the first man to always praise Mikey and the relationship he has with the players. It's very hard to get a coach that has that charisma, that empathy, that ruthlessness, but also has the attention to detail. And you can see that the water players are really, really buying into what Mikey's asked them to do. And after 1 year to get to an All-Ireland final, I think is a huge endorsement of what the two boys have done down there.
John, as a coach, the name Paul Connell has been associated with a couple of All-Ireland titles over the last couple of years. What exactly does Mikey bring in terms of a hurling brain? What's he bringing to Cahill and Waterford on Saturday?
Yeah, well, I think, Mikey was given captaincy in our club twice, which doesn't happen too often. And I think that shows the respect that every player had for Mikey when he spoke. And Mikey was an unbelievable trainer. Now, he was the worst man to stretch we ever came across. He pulled a hamstring walking down the street. So he didn't enjoy that part of it. But when he trained unbelievably hard. You'd love going out to puck around him. He had brilliant hands. But on the field, he was playing probably corner forward beside me. He used to head out the field and be the third midfielder nearly before that was ever a thing. He was very unselfish as a player, and you can see that in the water players at the moment. When he'd win a ball, he'd get through an amount of work. He'd soul it through. He'd actually hand pass the ball over the head of the fullback. He'd take the fullback's shoulder, clean his face, week in, week out, while I get a chance to wheel off with the fist in the air for scoring the goal. So Mikey was just a really unselfish player. You can see that in the way Waterford are approaching the game, their work rate. But also, I think when Mikey took over, I just texted him to say, I think a great decision, I said. There's an awful lot of pace down there. And I think in the modern game, you need pace. And the way Mikey played, he was very, very fast. And he was all about creating goals. And after 1 year, I think for the two boys to be able to incorporate that into Waterford's game, I think has been fantastic in 1 year.
Cahill and Beavens' relationship, is that the good cop, bad cop, or are they very similarly aligned in their thoughts on the game and how to handle players?
Yeah, no, it could be actually to everyone looking in, but they both would be ruthless in their own way. Like Mikey would be on board with what Liam wants to do and vice versa. And you can see that. Now, again, they're great friends. I know the guys very well. As I said, they're great fun, the two guys. but also they're very driven. You know, I know that Liam at the start of the year, Mikey sat down, obviously, and they want to put their own stamp on things. And I think when you're coming in from as an outside manager into a new setup, you probably have to do that, because you know there might be a few people that weren't maybe happy seeing an outside manager coming in, and I have to credit the guys who appointed them, because they must have done their homework. Not only have the guys won that, but to know that the guys' personalities you have to take a chance on, you know, and you're not going to get two better guys than Liam and Mikey. And you know, when Liam Sheedy actually was putting himself open for the job again in Tipperary, you know, the guys probably felt that they were in with a shot, but at the same time, when Liam came back, you know, it was going to be very hard for the county board to look past Liam, and that's proved correct. But I think that Mikey and Liam, when they do come back into Tipperary, the guys they were over, the under 20s and 21s, they're going to be 24, 25 when the guys come back. All going well, they come back, hopefully. But I think that'll be perfect timing for them to come back in and put their own stamp again on a Tipperary setup. All going well, but you won't look past their Waterford career yet. They have a few years left down there, I think.
The feeling seems to be that if Limerick turn up and get anywhere near their best, they should win this game, that they are potentially one of the great teams that we've seen in recent times. And they had more than enough for Waterford in the Munster final. But Waterford's progression in the couple of games against Clare and Kilkenny, is it a very different Waterford side in terms of confidence that's going into this final compared to the Munster final?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Munster final, especially, to come out of there and get I suppose it is a pat on the back you're getting because you're not winning, and that's not what the Waterford guys will be used to either. I know the last few years have been tough, but they've won a lot coming up in minor and 21 as well. So I think confidence was a huge thing for them. You know, I think they were probably overly criticised. Derek McGrath's regime, I don't think, deserved the criticism it did. I think especially when Derek finished up, a lot of injuries he got with the players finishing up, and it was a shame really. But I think that now that they needed that confidence builder, and I think that the guys coming in with that winning mentality from the setups they were in, they were very confident in what they wanted to impose. I think the players have bought into it. As I said, when Liam was asked on the Sunday game last week, a question about Mikey Beavens, he just said the relationship that Mikey has with these players is amazing, and it's great to watch. And I think that shows. So that confidence is building, and the boys are instilling confidence, and it'll only get better. You know, when you see the likes of Callum Lyons catching the ball over TJ Reid, who's probably, in my opinion, the greatest player to ever play the game, you know that young man is going to go on and be player of the year, I would imagine, in a number of years, and he can play any position. So I think that Waterford team are just brimming with confidence at the moment, and they won't fear going into the weekend. They'll definitely back themselves. I do think Limerick, I know everyone's saying they have another gear, and it's hard to get that gear if it's not there all year, but you know, they're seasoned as well, you know. I do think that Limerick have it might be their best performance on Sunday, but I still think they might creep over the line.
John, could I ask you about the difficulties in backing up an All-Ireland win? So you obviously won in 2001 and 2010 before you get your hands on Liam McCarthy again. For a team like Limerick, when we're already talking about the possibility that with the type of players that they had, they could become a dominant force in hurling, will that weigh on them this weekend? You know, do we have to back up 2018? Did you find that over the years with Tipperary that you were always chasing that backup All-Ireland?
Well, personally, no, because when I arrived on the panel in 2001, it was my first year and we won the All-Ireland. So I expected it probably too easy for the next few years, and it was 0-8 before we won a Munster title and 10 before we won one again. So I was just very happy to get back there and win it in 10. But when we were there in 11, I suppose a big thing for us maybe in 11 was when Liam and the guys stepped away. Now, perfectly reasonable reason to step away, but I suppose in my career I had 7 Tipperary managers. You know, you had Tommy on earlier. Tommy has one. Most of the Kilkenny players have only had one. I think it makes a huge difference. You know, a new manager comes in and he wants to put his own stamp on it. He wants to get to know players. He doesn't know the personalities of each player as well. Whereas, you know, the likes of Brian Cody would know each player inside out. How if they came into training with their head down, he'd know they're in bad form. He'd know this and that. He'd know how to manage them. So I think having a manager in place helps for longer periods. Limerick, I think if you go back to when they won the All-Ireland, in my own mind, I think they weren't ready. Not weren't ready. They won the All-Ireland, which is unbelievable. But I think everyone would have said they were maybe 2 years away from being All-Ireland champions. I think Seamus Hickey actually mentioned that after he retired, that they didn't expect to go on and win the All-Ireland that year. They were building and getting ready for it. I think they'll probably surprise themselves, but I think they're actually going to be peaking this year, next year, and the year after. So I do think there's a lot more in this Limerick team over the next few years. But as regards backing it up, you could see the reaction after the last game. I do think that Galway game, they really, really wanted to get back there after last year against Kilkenny. So might have been a bit of complacency last year against Kilkenny, even though Kilkenny are a great team and they deserved it on the day. I think that this Limerick team still have a bit more there. I know everyone's saying that, and we could be proven right or wrong on Sunday, but I think to win the All-Ireland again, I think they'll really want to do that.
So one word then, John, who's going to win it?
Look, because of the connections I have with Mikey and Liam, obviously, I'd like to see the guys doing it. But I think Limerick just by a point or two, I think.
All right, great stuff, John. And the whiskey, Jim Mac Whiskey, you can check out jimmacwhiskey.com or get on to the Celtic Whiskey Shop. Best of luck with it all, John. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Cheers, Tommy. Cheers, Nathan. Bye.
All right, so that was John O'Brien. It is the run into Christmas, despite the fact we're talking about All-Ireland finals. And to help you celebrate an unusual festive season and to stay close to the team of us, Vodafone want to fill your Christmas stocking. Every morning this week, we have a selection of great gifts to give away. This morning, you can win a signed copy of Rob Kearney's book, No Hiding, a Lions jersey and an Irish rugby jersey. To get your name in the hat, just tell us who is today's mystery voice.
I've apologised to the people that matter. I'm not going to sit here and apologise to the whole world.
To enter, just send the answer to WhatsApp 0879 180 180. We will reveal the answer and the winner before we leave you in around 15 minutes' time. If you don't win today, tune in again tomorrow for more chances to win. It is all with thanks to Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. Now, John Connell has been waiting patiently. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Hello, everybody.
Good to talk to you. You're the author of the running book. Would I be stupid to ask you to explain the concept of the running book?
No, you wouldn't be at all. The running book is the story of a marathon run through my home in County Longford, moment by moment, told over 42.2 chapters in 42.2 thousand words. So the length of the marathon being 42 kilometres. So that was the device, and it's not just about a run through Longford, it's about a run through life, other places I've ran, a bit of history, and also talking about sporting greats of the athletics world.
You're really putting a lot of pressure on yourself with that book, from running the marathon to start and then getting the word count exactly to 42.2 thousand.
Yeah, well, the good thing was that I don't think anyone would have wanted a book that was 100,000 words long on running. So it worked out quite well. A friend suggested the idea, and to use a pun, I ran with it. But I was really happy with how it turned out. Actually, it was a really good device.
Were you always a runner?
I was a runner when I was a young fella, and was quite talented at it, and would have taken part in community games and things like that, and in secondary school as well. And I left the sport then for a few years when I lived in Australia, and kind of came back to it and rediscovered it after some mental health issues, and really kind of opened up a whole new world for me, and it was a world of movement.
Right. And what drove you when you were going through those struggles to go back to running? Was it a bit of advice for somebody, or did you just find it within yourself?
Well, it was probably a combination of things, but I remember reading this Japanese author, Yukio Mishima, and he said the idea of fitness came down upon him like an idea, and I could see myself as this new man who had a hold on life, and he was a fit, strong guy, and I said, you know what, running used to be the thing I did. I think that's what I'm going to return to. So it was a combination of things, and then I suppose I discovered how much joy that I got out of running, and it was, I think anyone can feel like Usain Bolt in a moment when they're out there running, because we're all sharing the same experience.
The book has a lot of personal reflections, but also, as you say, a lot of history, a lot of stories about athletics. It feels like it was a real enjoyable experience for you as well, to probably look at your county, look at your life, and look at your interests in a very different way.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a really, every memoir you write is a reflection of your life and where you're at in the moment. And I would have wrote this book. I was in LA at the time. I'd done the run in Longford already, and it was a way to look back on life. And I'd already wrote the cow book, so that was kind of an exploration of where I was at that moment. And I'd finished the cow book with a run, and this was a way, the running book was a way to kind of compartmentalize the next part of my life and understand it. And through running through an unchanged place, I was able to understand myself so much better. And then I suppose the great little joys of it was discovering the other human beings who have done this craft, who have done this sport, and found success in it. And I think you can find, like Eliud Kipchoge or Abiba Bikala or all of these fantastic runners, that you could find inspiration in them in your own life.
John, when it comes to running, it's probably something that a lot of people are already forced to do this year, or to try it out, because there wasn't much more we could do, being locked down at various points across the year. I think sometimes it can be a bit intimidating for people when they're told you have to enjoy this, or it's a great release running. Did you always find that? Like I'll be honest, sometimes I struggle when I'm out running, like whether it be physically or in my own head. I'm like, gee, is this worth it, you know? But when you're pounding the roads at the back of Ballinolea, was it always something that you were like, do you know what, this is worth it, or did you struggle doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, in the book I talk about people who run from things and people who run for things. And I think in a way that's probably the best way to answer this question. I would have started as someone who was running away from things. I was running away from problems, and in the hope that running, the act itself would open me up to a new world. But now I run two things. I run towards fitness, towards health, towards feeling good. And I think that, you know, we never appreciated our personal movement before this lockdown, before these two lockdowns, before we were restrained to the 5K radius or to the exercising in your own area. I don't think we ever appreciated that movement is such an integral part of life, that it's such a blessing to be able to do. And I think that running is a way to, as I say in the book, to fall in love with the soul of the world, because you can fall in love with movement, and that's your time in the day. And there was a runner called Dr. George Sheehan, who I talk about in the book, and he's kind of credited with starting the jogging boom in America in the 70s. And he says that you have to make today your masterpiece. And I really thought about that a lot during this year, because sometimes that hour that I got out on the road in the small radius here around Ballinolea was my way of making the day count. And Sheehan used to talk about, and this is a line I've told to a lot of people, he said that today was the big event. We're all waiting for the perfect day. It's not going to rain, or it's going to be sunny, or it won't be windy. But we live in Ireland. Those perfect days are rare. So, and you're in a lockdown, those perfect days are even rarer. So you have to make today the event for you and make today count. And I think that's what running can do. It can really help you get a hold on life. And I'm not just talking about releasing endorphins and getting runner's high. I'm talking about building a foundation to ground the rest of your day.
John, it's fascinating stuff, and it's been brilliant to have you on. The running book, I presume it's available in all good bookshops?
It is indeed, yeah, and the audiobook as well.
Brilliant. Listen, we'd love to get you on again some other time and have a longer conversation with you, because, as I say, it's absolutely fascinating, and there's so much I think that people, particularly this year more than ever, can relate to. But the very best of luck with it all. Thanks very much, guys, and thanks for having me on.
Cheers, John.
That is John Connell there, talking about his new book. It is called The Running Book. Just on our competition winner, so it is the run-up to Christmas, and because it's an unusual festive season, and to stay close to the team of us, Vodafone want to fill your Christmas stocking every morning this week. We are giving you the chance to win a selection of great gifts. Up for grabs this morning, we had a signed team ball, a signed copy of Rob Kearney's book No Hiding, and an Irish rugby jersey. All you had to do was identify our mystery voice this morning. It was,
I apologise to the people that matter. I'm not going to sit here and apologise to the whole world.
Did you get an apology, Tommy?
I never got an apology off that man, no.
Johnny Sexton did not apologise to me either. We did not matter, but that is perfectly fine. If you knew the answer, you're in with a chance of winning. And congratulations to Connor Dawson, who's the man who goes home with that beautiful bundle of prizes with thanks to Vodafone. Don't worry, if you didn't win, we'll give you another chance to win tomorrow. It is all with thanks to Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. Here is what we've got coming up for OTB Sports Radio today. At 1 o'clock, OTB Gold is Michael Connell talking the morning after his Rio exit. We have State of the Union, Keith Wood's State of the Union, doing a deep dive into rugby and all matters off the pitch in rugby. At 4 o'clock, it's our retro panel, the LGBT experience in sport from a couple of years ago with Valerie Mulcahy, David Goff and Philippa Ryder. 6 o'clock, OTB Gold, Barry Ryan, author of The Ascent. And then we're back live on the radio tonight from 7. John Giles and Brian O'Driscoll are going to be among Adrian Barry's guests from 7 this evening. OTB AM is live every morning in association with Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Subscribe to the OTB AM podcast to get the fully timestamped show just after we wrap every morning. Back on the air on radio this evening from 7. Tommy, thank you. Excellent job as always.
Thanks, Nathan. Very enjoyable morning.
And we're back tomorrow morning here on OTB AM from 7:30. We'll talk to you then. Good luck.
OTB AM.